Good evening and welcome to the Gold, Guts, and Guns Hour here on YouTube and Periscope. My name is Tom Luongo. It is Friday, November 2nd, 2018. We are just 4 days from the midterm elections. We are just 2 days from the 6-month grace period from the time that Donald Trump ended or unilaterally pulled the United States out of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, otherwise known as the Iran nuclear deal. That 6 months happens on November 4th. On November 6th, Tuesday, we have the midterm elections here in the United States. We have a lot to talk about. There's a lot going on. And all of these issues are all kind of coming together in this month of November. It's going to be a very interesting month. And it's already starting off with a bang, as it were. So let's get started. To remind everybody, we do this every night, every Monday night at 8 o'clock and every Friday night at 8:30. Also, we'll be doing an election night stream at 10:30, same channel, 10:30 Tuesday night on election night. So coffee, I got my coffee, I got my hat, we got our thing, let's do the job. So this morning, there were no less than 3 very interesting announcements around SWIFT. And for those of you who don't know, SWIFT is the Society for Worldwide Telecommunications. Society for Worldwide International Financial Telecommunications. I always get this wrong. What SWIFT is the messaging system that financial institutions use to transmit money from one side of the world to the other. So if you're buying if I'm buying replacement parts for one of my German board games from a guy in Germany, I'm going to wire money to him. That's going to happen via the SWIFT system. The money is going to my bank or my credit card, and the bank behind my credit card is going to send a message to the bank on the other side that, hey, I'm going to be sending, this account sending X amount of money converted into euros, do the deal. And that all happens via SWIFT. Almost all the financial transactions in the world, worldwide, go through SWIFT. And the United States has tremendous amount of influence over SWIFT. It's housed in Brussels, for those of you who don't know. Housed in Brussels. But the United States has tremendous, tremendous power over SWIFT. So with the Iran sanctions looming, it's been a will they, won't they question as to whether or not the United States will impose all the sanctions that were in place before the JCPOA was signed. Or will Trump get selective about it? And moreover, will he kick Iran or pressure SWIFT to kick Iran and all of its banks, including the Bank of Iran, out of their network? Good evening, Sterling. How are you? It's good to see you, man. So that's the situation. And we've got a lot of clues in the last 12 or so hours as to what we are looking at going forward. Now, a couple of weeks ago, Donald Trump did dog whistle that he wasn't really sure if they were going to kick Iran out of the SWIFT system. And there was a good argument for this. And the argument goes something like this. Well, if you kick Iran out and you're worried that they're doing all these hinky things and you don't like the way they're paying for all of their quote-unquote terrorist activities, which, one man's freedom fighter and one man's counter-revolutionary is another man's terrorist. And I'm not saying that Iran is like pure as the driven snow or anything. The Iranian government is terrible. But at the same time, never trust the narrative that you're being fed by your leaders and by your media, because that's as horribly biased, if not more so, than anything else. So, but the real question is, if we kick Iran out, then the argument goes as to why you shouldn't do it this time. Is if you're really worried about all of this financing of terrorist activity and everything else, well, if you kick them out of SWIFT, then you have no way to monitor any of this financial traffic, right? Because it's not going through any banks that use SWIFT. And one of the things that we do, and almost everybody does. Every intelligence service around the world does. They monitor traffic coming through SWIFT to try and figure out where money's going, and this is how they catch people, quote unquote, laundering money. Not a big fan of the laundering money. Again, one man's money launderer is another man trying to get around ruinous, tyrannical, authoritarian, rules that are not in their favor. Right? So it all depends on the, I can even get very Bill Clinton on you here and go, it all depends on the definition of what is, right? Well, it all depends on what the definition of which side of the conflict you're on, right? And apparently, according to a report I saw this morning on RT, Steve Mnuchin, the U.S. Treasury Secretary, has his heart set on pressuring and is willing to sanction SWIFT that they don't kick Iran out. Now, don't kid yourself. Steve Mnuchin doesn't really work for the United States. He works for Goldman Sachs first, and then he works for Israel second. Probably the Saudis third. And somewhere in there, maybe in the top 5 or 6, would be the American people. Let's not mince words here. Steve Mnuchin is as dirty as the rest of the Browder crowd and the rest of them, all wanting to destroy Russia, destroy Iran, take control of all the energy markets and everything else. All of these people are all part of the same globalist cabal. I like to call it the Davos crowd. So, knowing all of that, Mnuchin is absolutely dead set on this. And of course, none of this has anything to do with improving the fate of Iranian people, because if you really cared, if any of these people in power cared at all about the Iranian people, this is not what they would be doing. They would not be trying to isolate Iran economically. They would be trying to lift these people out of effectively bondage to their government by opening up their borders through international trade. So, good evening to all the people. Good evening, Stan. I haven't seen you on the stream in quite a while. So, it's a terrible thing to watch what we do every time. And you know that these people are lying, and you know that they're murderous scumbags, for lack of a better term. When they refuse to stop playing power politics and think about the effect this has on the real people. It's like listening to Donald Trump virtue signal and say, our hearts go out or with the Iranian people to overthrow your government, and then we'll be nice to you. Fuck you. Be nice to us now. Trade with us now. And then we'll decide what our government's going to look like. Because, from our perspective on this side of the street, why don't you overthrow your own fucking government, Don? Which isn't serving the American people very well, Don. It's all bullshit. And it's all horseshit. It's all bullshit. It drives me nuts. Radical idea. Why don't we just leave people alone? Great idea. Stop playing power politics for 5 seconds. Stop thinking that the whole world runs the way Henry Kissinger thinks it's supposed to run. Sanctions always hurt the people in charge the least, of course. The ones who already have everything. So, not much. Me pissing off about Trump and the SWIFT system. Jen Johnson, asking whether or not what she missed. And I am reading your comments as I go along here and kind of filtering them into my commentary. So don't think that I'm not listening to you. I am absolutely getting better at this, being able to read those and continue to bloviate. So, most likely we're going to pressure SWIFT to kick Iran out of the system. All of the sanctions that were in place between 2012 and 2016 are going to go back into effect. None of this is news. None of this should surprise anybody. If you've got people starving in the streets, they're usually not particularly capable of overthrowing a government. I mean, if you think that, that shit worked, then If it worked that way, then Maduro would have been overthrown ages ago. The people who concoct these policies aren't thinking through what they're doing. Or are they? Or is the real target here the Iranian people? Is the real target here Iranian society? They don't really want a pliant government. What they want is chaos, and then they can install their puppets who will then destroy these people even more. This is what we did in Russia after the fall of the Soviet Union. This is what we've done in countless places around Central and South America. No, exactly. It isn't news, and no, we shouldn't like it. So, no, sanctions don't work. They're acts of war. Sanctions don't work. They are simply just bullying. And they're put in place by weak and ineffectual men. And they are the tool of the rapacious to destroy a population. That's it. That's all you need to understand. The rest of it is just salesmanship. So, I'm not going to talk the U.S. election for at least 40 minutes, so please hold all comments about the midterm elections. Period. You saw the talk. You can see the name of the talk tonight. That's what we're talking about. Plenty of time. Talk about so that's what the sanctions are all about. Now, here's the question. The big question for the evening is, are they going to work? So the first thing I saw this morning was that from Steve Mnuchin. The second thing I saw was Mike Pompeo saying, hey, yeah, we're going to put all the sanctions back on, but we're going to hand out waivers to no less than 8 countries. 8 countries. I'm going to try and get all my fingers. There we go. 8 countries. Yeah, 8. Okay? 8 countries. 8. To buy or be allowed to buy Iranian oil. And then, and Pompeo said, I'm not going to give you the list now. I'm going to give you the list on Monday. I'm going to tell you, Turkey has already said they're one of them. South Korea is going to be another. Japan's going to be another. China's going to be another. Got news for you. Those are the 4 big ones. Everybody else doesn't matter. Because the point is, but don't kid yourself. Pompeo will be out there and Trump will be out there. Oh, they're gonna pledge to cut their imports to 0 over time. They give them a 6-month waiver. 6-month waiver. Are you kidding me? So what'll happen is this. Ready? Be a 6-month waiver. Turkey, for example, will say, "Oh yeah, absolutely. We're going to cut. We'll be nice. We'll play nice now. We'll cut our Iranian imports, and they'll cut them 100,000 barrels a day or 50,000 barrels a day or whatever. And then the sanctions will go into effect. Pompeo will say, "See, look, everybody's doing their job," and they'll come out with a chart, and Iranian oil exports will have dropped some amount, and then it will go away, and we'll never hear about it again. This is exactly what happened in 2012. And eventually, Iran was able to raise its exports again over time. They had to go ahead and insure all the shipments themselves. So, fascinating. So, that's what's going to happen. There'll be a little bit of, I'm getting to the new SWIFT system from Russia. I'm not there yet. Give me a couple of minutes. So we've got that, right? And then we've got new sanctions going into effect. We've got some pledges to cut Iranian oil consumption. And then we have a whole bunch of 6-month waivers being handed out from some of the most important clients that Iran has. So I just find it funny. It's at the end of the day, what we're talking about then is, good evening, Mustang Girl. How are you, love? What we're talking about then is this the limit that you can bring SWIFT to bear and you can bring sanctions to bear? Because if Iran survives this, and I'm going to get to why I think that's going to happen in just a second, because if Iran survives this and the government survives this and their oil exports stay above, say, 3 million barrels a day, or their oil production stays above, their current exports are around 2.8 million barrels a day. So if they stay at around 2 or 2.1 million barrels a day, remember, they're exporting 500,000 barrels a day to Russia in a goods for oil swap, which then the Russians are then turning around and marketing that fuel, either refining it or marketing that fuel for Iran. They're splitting the cost and the difference and everything else. So understood. Remember, and that was not in place back in 2012. The Russians and the Iranians were not doing that level of business back then. So let's talk about that one. So then we go back and we think, okay, so if they survive this, so then what? You haven't cut Iran's exports to zero. You're going to depress the market for Iranian oil. All that's going to do is lower the price and make it more attractive for people to break the sanctions. And if there's a means by which that they can pay for that oil without having to go through SWIFT or the US dollar, then they can do it. Which brings me to the last thing I saw this morning. And the last thing I saw this morning, which I wrote a blog post about this morning, which you can see on my website, goldgoatsandguns.com, called "For Russia, Change Comes Swift." Nothing if not a punster. So the Russians let everybody know that their replacement financial messaging system has majority share, market share now domestically. And they've been telling everybody for weeks that they've got plenty of international clients who are interested in doing business with them. And interestingly enough, the same countries that are interested in doing business with Russia's SPFS, which is what they're calling their version of SWIFT, Iran, Turkey, China, India. Wait for it. Just wait for it. Germany. Wait for it. And that's what's coming. Back in 2008, Jim Sinclair, on his website ages ago, when the first time that the United States started threatening people with expulsion from the SWIFT system, was all the way back in the mid-2000s when FATCA first went into effect, and the other financial know your customer stuff, and the Patriot Act went into effect. And the United States got very aggressive going after foreign banks for information about their customers. And of course, the Swiss banks at that time had their vaunted, private Swiss bank accounts, when everybody would, if you wanted to do business in Switzerland's banks, you could do so anonymously. Well, it was the United States in 2010 that threatened UBS with expulsion from the SWIFT system if they did not turn over financial information. Supposedly, we were looking for Nazis. What we were really looking for were tax cheats. And that started it. And I remember Jim Sinclair saying then, you never go nuclear. If you guys want to know where I got that phrase from, it was from Jim Sinclair all those years ago. He said, never go nuclear. Once you go nuclear, you have nowhere else to back down from. It's not like it's a new idea or anything. This is the first time I heard it. Never go nuclear. And a weapon like SWIFT, where you have such a monopoly, and the reason that monopoly existed was because it was always a neutral thing. The potential was always there that if you crossed the United States in some way, that they could get angry with you, but no one ever really took it seriously, because no one was never thought any president would be dumb enough to threaten someone with expulsion from the SWIFT system, because once you do that, you make everybody realize the cost of truly doing business with the United States, and the cost of doing business with SWIFT. You highlight and quantify the cost and the risk of that single point of failure. And all systems that are single point of failure fail, especially when you use them as a weapon. So it started then. And Obama started that. I mean, Bush the Lesser threatened a little bit, but Obama went there. And then he went there in 2012 with Iran. Okay. Mega hello, that is not what that means. I'm going to make it short and sweet. No, it does not mean that. Does not mean that at all. And it's not important. So what you have, so that's the situation. So when he did this with Iran in 2012, and then when we put sanctions on Russia in 2014, what did the Russians do? They looked at the situation very proactively and said, this is not going to end well. We need to be independent of these people. Start the process of building our own. Start the process of building our own. The Bank of Russia hemmed and hawed, dragged their feet. Putin had to eventually threaten a lot of them with with jail time, I think, to get it done. But it was very important that this get done. And it's been in place. It's been up and running for over a year now, from test bed and beta testing all the way up to now it's been deployed. And now the Russians have an alternative. And what this means is that when you go... So a weapon like SWIFT is a lot like nuclear weapons, right? A weapon like SWIFT is also like... It's also a lot like a guy like Jeff Bezos, as I said in my article this morning, a guy like Jeff Bezos having billions in stock in this company. Well, you can't sell that stock. He actually isn't worth all the billions that we have on his balance sheet. By multiplying the number of shares of Amazon that Jeff Bezos owns times the share price of Amazon does not equal Jeff Bezos' wealth. If you want to understand, if you think that that's the case, go ask Elizabeth Holmes how much her Theranos stock was worth, and how much she's worth now. She's worth nothing. You know why? Because the stock was never worth anything. It doesn't matter that somebody put some bullshit valuation on it. It doesn't matter that the market puts a bullshit valuation on it. Bezos can no more sell that stock than Holmes could, even when it was private. Because if Bezos were to go out tomorrow and say, I'm going to sell all my stock, Amazon's price would crash. Then he'd have to sell all that stock into the market, which everybody would pull their bids. He'd realize 25 cents on the dollar, 30 cents on the dollar. In real marketable terms, he's easily not worth 1/3 what he is on paper. And so, but that gives him power, and also undercuts Amazon's business and undercuts the market's confidence in them and everything else. And so at the end of the day, Amazon's share price, is a weapon in the marketplace. But it's a weapon you can't use that way. Jeff Bezos can't go out and spend billions of dollars to take elections, to rig elections. George Soros can, because George Soros doesn't run anything. He makes money by making money off of other people. He makes money by stealing money from other people. That's what he does. Right? So it's the kind of weapon that is most effective when you never bring it to bear, when you never unsheath it. And that's what SWIFT is and was. Okay? That's what SWIFT is, and that's what SWIFT was. And will be. Because competing systems will now be brought to bear. Okay? And once that financial traffic is outside of SWIFT, it's never coming back. The Russians are going to unite all of Central Asia, from India points north, under this system, and into Eastern Europe. Mark my words, this is coming over the next 15 years. This is coming. They got there first. And that's why Putin does not fuck around in international relations. It's why he doesn't abrogate treaties. It's why he cuts deals and sticks to them ruthlessly. It's why he sticks by his allies. It's why he always leaves the door open for negotiations with his enemies. Because that is how you build confidence in your systems. It's how you build confidence in your government, in your diplomatic corps, in your banking system, and everything else. That's how you do it. It's coming. Chinese have got a little bit to learn from Putin. He gets it. He gets it in a way that drives people like Steve Mnuchin mad. And that's why I don't think these sanctions are going to work. And that's why I think we've seen the apex of American financial power. Russia's intervention into Syria was the acme of the U.S.'s ability to project power around the world militarily. And today, and over the course of the next month or so, we're going to find out this is the day that Swift died. All right, let's open it up for questions and comments and everything else. I don't have all the comments that have come by the board because there have been so many, and a lot of them have gone. I will go back to RB Tools. Do you still support Trump? Yeah, I do. I think he's made a lot of mistakes. I think he's got bad people around him, and I think that he's too wedded to the idea of getting leverage in order to fuel a negotiation. But that's who Donald Trump is. It's the best he's the best we got. I have to support that because he's not stupid. He will cut a good deal eventually. He's going to sit down with Putin on the 11th of November, and I fully expect something good to happen. Because if you start to look, because I saw some other things today that I didn't have a chance to talk about yet. Let's talk about this. Trump said very, very quickly after the Istanbul conference on Syria, right? The Astana peace process talks in Istanbul last week, on the heels of their joint statement, which was a poke right in the eye to U.S. foreign policy wonks and the U.S. military by 4 major countries, including 2 supposed allies, 3 supposed allies, Turkey, France, and Germany. Trump said, we're going to be getting out of Syria really soon now. This morning, I saw on RT, the general in charge of our operation in Afghanistan came out and said there cannot be a military solution to Afghanistan. Shall I repeat that for you if that did not sink into your heads? I don't mean to be rude. I don't mean to be blunt or condescending, but I'm going to be all of them at the same time. There can be no military solution in Afghanistan. Now, we've been talking about this on and off for months, that the United States has been entering into peace talks and some entering into early peace talks with the Taliban over pulling out of Afghanistan. At the same time, for the last 2 years, the Russians and the Russians, India, Pakistan, China, and Iran have been working with moderate elements of the Taliban to try and figure out a way out of there for everybody. This is happening. Okay? A month ago, Justin Raimondo wrote a great article over at antiwar.com, which was a hard pill for us skeptics to take. But the truth of the matter is that he was right. 3 steps forward, 2.5 steps back, but Donald Trump is moving us in a direction away from the empire. It's slow, it's painful, it's go left to go right, it's go north to go south, but he's getting us there, slowly but surely. The best case for Trump, says WDM223, is that he's like a man trying to stop a runaway train headed for a huge crash. Well, yeah. Or in the case of my favorite metaphor, Act 3 of Atlas Shrugged, he's like the guy trying to stop the train from going under the tunnel and asphyxiating everybody. because it's all one big fucking boondoggle. Joanne, you did an interview this week on Afghanistan. Awesome. If any, all of you, if you don't follow Joanne's Around the Empire podcast, you absolutely need to. I've been on it a couple of times. It's a good show. She has great guests. I'm actually quite honored to be on it, given the quality of the guests she gets on. I'm like, fuck, am I doing on there? Yes, Riverboat. Wow. After 17 years of losing, the U.S. is finally willing to admit it after they tricked Trump or browbeat him into going back in with more troops. And we're still in the same boat that we were in before. The graveyard of empires. This Trump also said they will stop supporting the Saudis in Yemen. I know. Also big. These are all little things that are starting. They're not little things. These are big things, but they're big virtue signals. And what it's telling me is everything I need to know about the midterms on Tuesday. We're sitting there chatting with my good friend and partner and really my domestic policy wonk. He's much better on domestic policy than I am. We were chatting about all this today, and he's naturally an anxious person. It's like I am. Got a lot, he's incredibly smart, incredibly brilliant man, and at the same time has his anxiety issues. And he's kind of like, man, I don't tell you, I'm getting worried about this, and this could happen, and I'm like, stop. Step back and think about what you're saying. Go back to your other arguments. No way. All the anecdotal evidence I've seen, I've been talking, how many people do I talk to twice a week? All telling me the same thing. Early voting lines are out the freaking door. And all the numbers are coming up heavy Republican. Scott Colvin asks, if the midterm elections go for the R's, do you see Trump quickly de-escalating our military engagements? I don't know about quickly, but I do think that that's what we're doing. I think that all of these statements are virtue signals about how confident Trump is about the midterms and about the pressure that's being lifted from him. And I think he's getting that opportunity now to tell everybody, he's got his people out there now saying, look, this is done. We're changing policy. Wow, you talked with, so Joanne talked with an active duty officer who served tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, talked about General Miller's latest comments. Great, thank you. I should actually make time to listen to that. Okay. No, RB Tools, you're missing the point. You're missing the point. I know you're Australian, so you're missing the point completely. None of these things are really coming from Trump. They're coming from people around him. Every time, look, what happened last week? Trump said we're going to get out of Syria real soon now. And the DOD did not fucking freak out like they did the last time he did it. Bolton wasn't out there saying, no, that's not going to happen. Or Mattis didn't say anything about it, trying to talk him down. Or nobody, well, even Nikki Haley, the lame duck at the UN, she didn't say anything. No, the last time he said that, they went freaking ballistic in setting up for the meeting with Putin. Now, it's the same situation. We're 2 weeks out from him meeting with Putin on the sidelines of the G20. The midterms are going to be a turning point. We're going to know what country we want to be. And we're going to talk about that on Monday night. I already know what the title of Monday night's talk is. I already know what my marketing, my big article for the week on Sunday that I'll send out to my mailing list will be. Already laid out. It's already in my head. Came to me this morning. It's great. Love it when it happens, because usually I'm sitting there on Sunday morning going, okay, now what? The world has turned on this empire's foreign policy of destabilization. RB Tools, you have to realize that Trump is, like I said previously, 2 parts shitlord and 3 parts shitbag. The R's will have to purge the rest of the neocons and send them back to the D's. We'd like that to happen. I think that if the Trump wing of the Republican Party wins on Tuesday, you're going to see people like Bill Kristol openly declare that they're now Democrats. He's been hinting about it for months. He'll now do it. And then the rest of them will do the same. But, you know, it was one of the things I was saying to my friend this afternoon. He's like, well, the goddamn never-Trumpers could ruin all this. I'm like, no, they won't. They're the most demoralized people in the fucking country right now. They're more demoralized than the centrist leftists than the centrist Democrats who are going, what happened to our coalition? What happened to the Democratic Party? This is not the party I used to follow. I'm going to vote for Trump. At least he's reasonable. Yeah, yeah, I'm not crazy about Heather Neuert as UN ambassador, North on 60, not at all. No, actually, Jen Johnson, at this point, the polls are going to become much more real in the last 3 or 4 days because early voting in most states ends today. And then there's a quiet period before the election day. So I haven't voted yet. I'll go vote on Tuesday. I don't tend to, I mean, unless I'm going north for some reason, I don't generally early vote simply because I don't have any desire to go in that direction. So, but if the polls have all the Republicans in Arizona up by a couple of points, those numbers will get worse by election day. Yes, Trump said again, we're leaving Syria real soon now. He said it last Sunday, like 3 hours after the Istanbul summit got finished. They issued their statement in the morning, and then sometime around noon or 1 o'clock, Trump said, oh yeah, we're getting out of Syria soon anyway. Don't worry about it. Will Russia lean on Iran to give up nuke ambitions? They can. They have. And they've done so because Iran's nuclear ambitions run through North Korea, and North Korea wants to denuclearize. So now the better question, DTF, is can Trump sit on fucking Israel long enough to not want to nuke everybody in their cousins in the Middle East? That's what we need to know. Notice how the two shootings and the I like the boomer bomber better personally, are out of the public consciousness. Seems like the work of a higher power. Trump's ability to derail the media and hit jobs is amazing. True. Those also didn't have any staying power whatsoever because because those narratives were burst. They burst immediately. I mean, there were Democrats here in Gainesville going, "Oh, come the fuck on!" They mailed those bombs to themselves. Max Boot has already moved over to the Democrats. Well, no shock there. My God, he's the biggest friggin' commie of the bunch. At least he admits he's a commie. Liz Sandy, very interesting comment. I like this. It is easy to worry about everything these days. Everything these days. Nicely laid out. I liked it. E space V space ER. Everything these days. But I'm still optimistic. R.E. Trump. He's bringing chaos and will gain power. He's bringing the chaos. He's bringing the... Moreover, he's not even just bringing the chaos. What he's bringing is exposure. He's forcing he's still continuing. The biggest benefit to Donald Trump's presidency is that he forces all these people to out themselves because he refuses to be cowed by them. Because he doesn't have any shame. And he's an asshole. That's where the 3-part shitbag works for you. Okay? I mean, again, I say that with respect. Okay? I couldn't do what Donald Trump's doing. Moment of silence for John McCain's brain tumor. It's Friday night. An American hero. All right. All right. Welcome to Costco. I love you. That's the username. That's not me. Says Sheldon Adelson is a self-proclaimed Zionist. Yes. And he's very anti-Iran. Yes. The so-called quote-unquote kingmaker, Republicans still shill for his donor money. Yes, they do. A lot of them do. And I think Trump owed him some stuff. And I think he's paid a lot of those debts. And I think at a certain point, Donald Trump says, okay, I paid my debts to you. Fuck off. If anybody in this world can say fuck off to Sheldon Adelson, it's Donald Trump. Rocket Man, I know you've been asking this question diligently every 10 minutes for the entire thing. Has Project Veritas effectively killed Gillam's chances? No, Gillam killed Gillam's chances. Ready? African Americans or blacks are only 6% of the population of Florida. Okay? If they don't turn out in Obama-like numbers, it won't matter. And still, North Florida blacks will not vote for. I don't think they'll vote for Gillum. The last time Trump said he wanted out of Syria, he ended up bombing the country within a matter of weeks. No, that's not true. He said he was going to get out of Syria like 6 weeks before the summit with Putin in July. He said it after he bombed. He sent the cruise missiles in April. After. Project Veritas has been not just on a roll. He's been destroying these people left and right. Florida governor predictions, DeSantis will win. He'll win on Rick Scott's coattails. The heroic tumor. Yes, if someone was offered a free TV on election day if they voted, I guarantee there'd be somehow. Yeah, there's going to be voter fraud on election day. Don't get your hopes up. There's also going to be lawsuits. There's going to be immediate accusations of Russian interference. You wait. There's going to be all sorts of fake news on that. Just wait. Pray for Mojo. Your previous attack on Gab post was super duper awesome, man. Well, thank you very much. And to be honest with you, that thing went all over the place. It's still getting retweeted or still getting picked up by various places. It just got picked up by SOT.net and the Russophile and a variety of other good places. And I didn't think it was very good, but whatever. I'm not going to complain. There's so many angles on that story that I didn't really cover in that article that I wanted to, but I was, it's one of those things. The Sunday article is copywritten for the purpose of trying to get new subscribers and new patrons, and it's sent out to my mailing list, so it's written in mostly they're written in a very particular style, and I don't think it's, and that's very hard to do and do well under pressure and under time pressure. That's the kind of thing usually takes time to craft. So I thought it was okay from that perspective. I didn't think it was my best work in terms of Gab, but thank you very much. I appreciate it. Well, if the Zionist donors all go to the Democratic Party, that'd be fantastic. Because that means they're going to be wasting their money on a losing cause for the next generation. User 13 says that Georgia is way more in play than Florida is. I probably agree with that. Yeah, Rich Lowry, Kevin Williamson, Jonah Goldberg, Ed McMullen, George Will, all those guys. They're all freaking dead end. They're all freaking neocon dead enders. How do we right this ship, Tom? We average Americans have to set up a lobby just to buy off our own elections from other lobbies? Well, it depends on how these midterm elections go. I'm dead serious. This is a very important election from a historical perspective. This will decide what kind of country we're going to be. This will decide whether or not we're going to give Donald Trump the mandate to truly start draining the swamp. Or are we going to let the friggin' shitbag Marxists back in the door who have no scruples, no moral code, no moral center. Power for power's sake. Yeah, who runs Bartertown? You bet, motherfucker. All right. Last time I looked, the Dems have 30 times more money to spend on political ads than Republicans. This won't end anytime soon. I think the House stays Republican. You notice how many times that Trump's been in Florida. Have you seen the sizes of the crowds? Scott wins because of Donald Trump. DeSantis wins because of Donald Trump. Yeah, ZH got my article on Gab. It was really good. Actually, I had an article on Zero Hedge one morning that did so much business in like an hour and a half, they backdated it and pushed it onto the second page so that nobody would see it. The Weekend Tyler doesn't like me very much. So Georgia won't go blue just yet, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Libertarians siphoned enough votes to cause a runoff for governor race. That's possible. You know better than I do. I haven't really been following Georgia very closely. But yeah, the article on that article on Zero Hedge did mad business. It was pretty impressive. But I also got picked up by a lot of other people. I mean, everybody picked that article up. It was on Lou Rockwell. It was on David Stockman. It was literally everywhere. It got picked up by people that I never knew had the kind of traffic that they had. And I saw unbelievable traffic to the blog. That was by far the best week my blog ever did. It did twice the level of traffic and visitorship that I'd ever seen before, which is good. And it was good for a lot of patrons, actually, as well. So people were fired up about the censorship thing. It's a big deal. It's really important. And it's fundamentally un-American. The unfairness of how Gab has been treated is fundamentally un-American. We got about 10 minutes left, guys. So let's see what else we got here. There will be no cuck insurgency. The neocons like George Will and Kevin Williamson will never rise again. Oh, yeah, they're dead. They're gone. And then, Fox doesn't have Krauthammer to bring on anymore either. Ann Coulter says it nicely. We have the truth. We will win. Ann Coulter has been on fire the last couple of years. I have to give her a lot of credit. Florida is a base camp for Trump. It really is. Now, I told you guys back in 2016 that I thought Trump would win by 7. He won by 5, and there were at least 2 points worth of voter fraud in Broward County. So, and you got to remember, guys, that once the midterms here in the United States are over, everything shifts to Europe. All the crazy that starts, if they try to go nuts post-election here in the United States, it won't matter. The markets are going to look at that and go, yeah, whatever. The markets don't give a shit about things like Ferguson and Antifa rioting in Portland or any of that crap. They don't give a crap. They're going to start looking over there at Europe going, fuck. You people are fucked. The Dems are going to lose in such a way. So Scott Colvin, you're asking a question. If the Dems lose to Congress, do they crash and burn like the Whigs? They crash and burn like the Taft wing of the Republican Party. Post-World War II. Right? The non-interventionist wing of the Republican Party became a permanent underclass in the United States until Ron Paul. Right? Well, Reagan brought it back a little bit, and then Ron Paul. But even Reagan wasn't really a non-interventionist. He was just a smaller government, small government kind of guy after a decade worth of or 2 decades really worth of shit. So no, think of it more like the Democrats becoming a permanent political underclass, and the Republicans being in charge for the next 20 years. That's what I see happening. But I also see the Democrats going full retard. And I use that word in a sentence, and I use it on purpose, and I do not care that they go full retard and full on leftist violence after this as well. It's going to be both of those things at the same time. Not going to be pretty. The next 2 to 3 years are not going to be pretty. And the state Supreme Court will probably shoot that down, Carlos. If Gillum won Florida, he would executive order ex-felons to vote to turn the state blue, I suspect. And the state Supreme Court will shoot it down. Gillum, as Florida governor, does not have a lot of power. Do you think the Fed will get back to pumping the markets per the usual after the midterms? There are really no markets anymore, just the Fed money printing. I don't completely agree with that, Riverboat. But I do believe that valuations have been completely distorted by central banks. So let's put a finer point on let's put a finer line on that point. Do I think the Fed is going to start pumping? No, I don't. What I think the Fed is going to be doing after the election is continuing to try and raise interest rates and to pull back on dollar liquidity, because they will now immediately go into 2020 mode to try and sabotage Trump, for one, and two, because they are really and rightfully worried about the pension situation here in the United States. And they need to get interest rates normalized. It's bad. The Trump tweet with illegal alien cop killer and immigrant caravan was wonderful and drove a blue checkmark Twitter to the brink of insanity. I missed it. I didn't see it. Then again, I haven't really been following Twitter for the last two or 3 days at all. And to be honest with you, my blood pressure is a lot lower. What are your chances for the Republicans keeping the House at this point? The same as they've been since March. Very high. Yep. Leftist violence, Ukraine on fire, Soros backed. Yep, agreed. The Dems are going to get curb stomped in 2020. 2018 will be the beginning of the end, and then at the end of 2020, once the Clintons are destroyed once and for all and removed from from having any effect on the Democratic Party whatsoever, the Democratic Party will be done. Sank Uger says the Democratic Party civil war begins in 2 weeks, and so does the 2020 campaign. Take it with a big grain of salt. That guy is the biggest grain of salt there is. Yeah, well, we'll see. That is going to be their plan for Gillum, but then again, Carlos, Gillum could easily be impeached. He's a crook. And everybody knows it. What's the Fed's end game? Is it to destabilize the world saturated in debt? The guy from Shadow Stats on Greg Hunter. So you're talking about John Williams with Shadow Stats. On Greg Hunter said it was just to benefit the banks. Self-preservation went little into that. I think that's part of it. I also think that there's two other things that are going through the Fed's minds, and I think you got to thank Martin Armstrong for these observations. One, the Fed does not want to be blamed for stock market bubble. So they look at international capital flows and they see valuations on the U.S. stock market, and they go, and they don't want to be blamed for it. And all of that is of course money coming in from overseas, flooding into our markets. So they don't want to be blamed for that. And then two, they've got to raise interest rates in order to try and get some returns into the pension funds, because right now the pension funds are all in arrears after 10 years of trying to bail out the banks. Actually, no. Martin Armstrong has been on that one for years. And he's been on that one for years. And I just happen to agree with him. So, no, credit is where credit's due. AOL 22,000 equals Facebook in 2018. Not 2018, but certainly by 2020. Facebook has broken its compact with the public trust in every way. You don't do that and retain your business. Oh, you mean Robert O'Rourke, the Irishman? Yeah, please. That guy is not going to be Ted Cruz. User 13. I love how the name of that show, The Young Turks, is all about celebrating the literal genocide of Armenians. But hey, it's all good because Cenk is a liberal. Yeah, nothing makes me happier than people doing memes about Cenk Uygur and the Armenian genocide. Polling could be so systematically off that the Republicans lose in less than 10 House seats. The Republicans could gain House seats, guys. That's how bad the polls are. With the chaos in Europe, will U.S. always look better in comparison for investment and keep us aloft, or is that just not so? Not completely. It's the order of operations of the sovereign debt crisis, right? It's going to be Europe first, and it's going to be the emerging markets, which are already getting hit now, and Europe, as Europe implodes. And then that money's going to all come here, and that's going to raise the dollar. It's going to raise interest rates here. It's going to raise the dollar. Gold's going to go ballistic. And then eventually all the capital will flow in, and then it will flow out, and then we're going to be left with a mildly hyperinflationary bag. While the money flows back out to now undervalued markets. And some of that money is going to flow back into Europe. A lot of that money will continue to flow into Russia. Russia's going to get some of the overflow, but they can't get very much of it because there's just not a big enough market to take the trillions of dollars that are going to fly out of Europe. So, okay. But what will happen to U.S.-Saudi relationships? That's a good question. I think they're going to... Over time, I see the United States using Saudi Arabia for our benefit. And then we'll cut them off when we don't need them anymore. Right now, it's a power struggle between the deep state and Donald Trump as to who's going to be staying in control of the Saudi government, because the deep state wants their satrap back. Yeah, Jen Johnson, I saw that too. I thought that was the richest thing I'd ever heard. And that these okay, so a couple of dozen Honduran caravan people filed a class action lawsuit against Trump for violating their rights. You're not U.S. citizens. You don't have anything, but yet somehow you filed a class action lawsuit? And it's your personal civil right to invade our country, regardless of whether I personally believe in arbitrary political borders. That border exists. It's there. Hey, I have an idea. Why don't you go fuck yourself and we'll call it even? Right. That looks like a show. We'll leave it there. It's 59 minutes, so it sounds great. Oh, look. No dropped frames. No weirdness. Amazing what happens when you clean up your hard drive. Alrighty, guys. It's been great talking to y'all. As always, it's been the Gold, Goats, and Guns Hour. If you like what you heard tonight, please give a like and subscribe down below. If you want to follow my work, please do so at goldgoatsandguns.com. You can follow me on Twitter whenever I'm active at TFL1728. When Gab is up online, you can follow me there at TFL1728 as well. You can also find me on Steemit at steemit/goldgoatsandguns. And you can support my work by supporting me on Patreon at Patreon/goldgoatsandguns, where you can sign up for the Gold, Goats, and Guns investment newsletter, which will run you a scant $12 a month. All right, you guys take care. You have a great evening. Be well. Keep your stick on the ice.